Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
A new way to think about your marketing strategy. Now, if you're a coach, consultant, or small to medium business that is passionate about doing the work that you're meant to and living an inspired life while doing it, you're in the right place, my friend. Today, we're going to be talking about a new way that you need to start thinking about your marketing strategy so that you can create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And why am I doing this? Because my mission is to help coaches, consultants, and small to medium businesses like yourself, my internet explorer friend, build a brand that you're proud of and create a lifestyle that you love. And what we do normally on this podcast is snitch on the people that we talk to, on our daily basis and try and answer their questions in a platform that actually creates for and relates to our audience. And you happen to be the lucky ones that get to get the best of both worlds. So the question that we're trying to tackle today is, Prosper, how do I create a marketing strategy that is not going to eat into my time, money, and effort? And then my answer to that is there's a new framework that you can use. It's a very, very old framework, but we just need to give perspective to it. And I call it the ORB Framework. You can find this anywhere else. O standing for owned, R standing for rented, B standing for borrowed. And we're going to be talking about that. We're not talking about something borrowed that you have to wear on your wedding day, but it's in the same context. So it's a very common question that I get, from people that haven't really set up their business. And after all, you know that you're going to need a marketing strategy, but you can't just seem to settle for one. You need to identify your target market. You need to clarify your message and then determine what is the best media for you to reach out to people. And it is all very confusing because you don't know whether you can blog or podcast like this or go on videos and things of that nature. And every single day, someone somewhere purports to have said they have found that magic pill, that new shiny object that is designed to take away all your marketing wars from just one click of some stupid platform or strategy. And at the end of the day, you now want to at least not be left behind. One thing I can tell you is, first of all, you don't want to be out there doing what the marketplace is doing, because the majority of people are always wrong. That's one thing for sure. And you don't want to be out there serving everyone. If you really look at your business, you will notice that all you really need is 10 solid clients that you're going to be, maybe selling your consulting, your training, your information, your expertise, and maybe doing, paid speaking gigs. And that's more than enough for you to actually create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. You do not want to, execute a marketing strategy that canvases everybody else, even people that are not in your, geographic area and things of that nature. Why would you be spraying and praying with your marketing, if it's not going to yield any results? Okay. So whether you're sitting down for the very first time to create a marketing strategy, or you already are a well-seasoned vet with teams, and you probably have more than $1 million in additional budget for this year alone, let me tell you something. You still have to be like any other person, have to wade through a plethora of marketing gurus and coaches that are out there that have strategies and tactics available today. You know why? We now live in an internet first, business model. So everybody thinks they have that new shiny blueprint or whatever strategy, which is going to make your day or month or year a whole lot better than it was before. And you will still find yourself maybe out there cold calling potential clients and having them hang up in your face because you do not have a marketing strategy that supports you being out there letting people know what it is that you do and how you solve their problems. You're probably sending out hundreds of emails without even getting as much as, hey, thank you so much for reaching out with your health, wealth, or relationship advice. I needed that. Nobody's doing that. Oh, you find yourself wasting thousands of dollars on ad spend without generating any qualified leads. And I know sometimes it actually starts to feel like no one wants to buy what you're selling. And when you actually rely on your business to pay rent and put food on the table, this can actually put an enormous strain on your emotions. And maybe you're now terrified, having to give up on your dreams and maybe return to some sort of safe 9-to-5 job with your tail tucked between your legs if you can't bring in new clients. I'm here to tell you that there's a new way to reframe your thinking about marketing, and we shall be talking about the ORB framework, okay? So whatever newsletter referral program that you have going on, your blog posts either on your own website or guest posting, whatever SEO strategies that you've got going, PR stunts, or engineering that has been predicated on some sort of marketing that Elon Musk has been doing, whatever TikTok dances you've been working on, or influencer marketing, or being part of the Twitter trends that are going on these days. The list goes on and on and on. How do you choose the best media for you to disseminate your message so that people get to know, like, and trust you in a way that they do business with you? Because we know that people do business with those they know, like, and trust. So I'll tell you what, in the last decade that I've been trying to build this business that you are now experiencing, Live Long Digital, I've found that marketing strategies and tactics can actually be broken down into three main categories. Ones that are owned, ones that are rented, and ones that are borrowed. And in other words, you have lines of communication to an audience that you either own yourself and you can control, or you can rent that audience, but you don't necessarily own it, or you can borrow, an audience. So all of these are viable ways that you can actually reach your intended audience, and they each have their own place in an overarching marketing plan. So when you look at all these three categories together, you now have a handy framework to actually create a winning marketing plan. And in this podcast, I'm going to try and give you this ORB framework and how you can actually use it so that your coaching, consulting, and your small to medium businesses thrive. Okay, so the ORB sort of looks like this. You've got your own media, which is the direct relationship that you have with your audience. Okay, so this direct relationship is your email list, your website, the communities that you've created, a podcast like this. I'm speaking to you based on what it is that you're doing right now. Okay, and then you've got the second layer where you've got rented audiences. You obviously on social media right now. You probably have an app that's sitting in the app store. You probably have a Twitter feed that's giving people information 24/7 about your business. You've got a YouTube feed, and you've got maybe a TikTok, place. And then there's places where you can literally borrow an audience. This is maybe when you get featured in the mainstream news, or when you get, invited to speak on maybe Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss, platform. Or you can use platforms like AppSumo, where you literally, can be allowed to showcase your products, without you actually owning the audience, okay? But you're renting that audience, all right? So what I'm just trying to say is all of these platforms are meant to represent the level of depth that you have with the audience, okay? So at the core, you are as close to your audience as possibly can be, which is when you actually own the media, right? This is your own private ecosystem, your private medium, okay? And as you extend out, you now start, going into the rented platforms, which are usually subject to algorithms, distribution, ranking, and other external factors, all right? You can reach more people, but the level of depth of connection is reduced. You are at the mercy of Google. You're at the mercy of the TikTok platform. You're at the mercy of Snapchat and Instagram sort of algorithms, all right? And when you lay out all your marketing experiments and channels, everything should actually point back to what you have created yourself, your own owned platforms. That way, you control the narrative. You control how you actually encourage people's dreams. You control how you help people confirm their suspicions. You control how you help them throw rocks at their enemies. The reason why this is important is because anybody else on the internet out there, even though they're looking for information, if you so happen to be the one that's distributing that information, they get to know, like, and trust you. And we all know that people do business with those they know, like, and trust. And we also know that our clients are looking for belonging. They're looking for connection. They're looking for peace of mind. They're looking for status. They're looking for being valued. You can't do that in a rented Ferrari, bro. You can't do that on a rented yacht, because you're not going to be there tomorrow when they're ready for you and they want to go on a yacht ride, or they want to ride in your Ferrari and you don't have it. Okay, so you just create that disconnect. All right, so if you borrow somebody else's audience, okay, it's usually all for naught if you can't lead them back to your owned platforms. So you might be you might get an opportunity to be featured on somebody else's podcast, to be featured in mainstream media, but if you can't drive that traffic back to something that you've created on your own, all of that is wasted efforts. All right, so rented platforms especially should be used to lead your audience back to your owned platforms, so you can reduce the risk of that loss of reach or access that your rented platforms are prone to give you. Right now, as we speak, I personally do not have a Facebook profile. I personally do not have a LinkedIn profile, because all of that is rented platforms. I've been working so hard to create a community around the work that we're doing. If you look up the Live Long Business Community, you will be able to find what it is that I've been trying to create. It's not easy when you're creating something from scratch, and it's easy, and that's the reason why a lot of people, tend to be very loud on rented platforms, because it's all being created for them. All they're just doing is latching their message onto things like that. But there's a risk involved in that, okay? So at the end of it all, you should be able to actually find out, is what I'm doing borrowed? Is what I'm doing rented? Do I actually own this media? Yeah, right? Because once you've got it all laid out, you can see which of the content that you're creating is owned by you, and what are you actually investing in. Because if you're going to build a business that's profitable and enjoyable, income follows assets. What assets have you created? This podcast is an asset in and of itself. You can literally be listening to episode number 1 while somebody's listening to, season 6, episode number 50. And that's a possibility, because this is on owned platform. It's not going to be relegated by the, algorithms that are going to try and give you the most popular episode or things of that nature. So you want to work on owned platforms that you're going to invest in, where you'll engage your audience and actually grow these own platforms. And you need to be making sure that your audience is growing, likewise, by maybe borrowing from other people's audiences. All right. So don't worry. I mean, it might just look all simplistic or too hard, whatever it is, whatever your opinion is. It doesn't have to be complex. You just need to have a strategy around what it is that you're doing. All right. So let's look at these concepts, the ORB, one at a time. And let's first of all look at the one that I like the most, which is owned. I love owning my content. I love owning my community. I love owning the conversations around the work that I'm creating. All right. So this is why I'm always asking you to invest in owned platforms that cater to what your audience wants and what you can do best. Okay. The reason why I took off, my social media is so that I can literally, if somebody looks me up, they're going to not find some sort of Facebook profile or LinkedIn profile. They're going to find something that I've created, okay? And I want them to know me from that angle, all right? Not what another algorithm decides what, people need to know about me, all right? So it's very important to know that you do not own your audience. You own your platform. Right now, nobody can literally take this podcast away from me because it's a platform that I have created. If Spotify doesn't like me anymore, guess what? I still have Apple. I still have all the other platforms that you're listening from, Amazon, Stitcher, all of those things, okay? This is a line of communication that I have with my audience. I don't own the platform Spotify, but I own the online prosperity experience. I can take it wherever I want to, okay? Just like what, Joe Rogan did. He took his content and he placed it on, on Spotify, and he got paid, I think it was 100 million or whatever money that they agreed on. That he can still take that content and put it on different platforms if that contract lapses, all right? So it's important to note that you don't own your audience, but you own your platform. You own that line of communication. So more control, more reach, and more predictability is what owned media gives you. So naturally, when you own the platform, and owned platforms get more effective over time, whereas borrowed and rented platforms usually get less effective over time. We've all seen how Meta is also really trying to reconfigure itself. And in the process, do you think they've got your best interest at heart while they're doing that? No, they're just looking out for their own bottom line, you know what I mean? So if you want more control as to how you reach your audience, you want to own the platforms, you want to own the email marketing, you want to own the podcast, you want to own the blogging, you want to own your videos, all of those things, okay? You see, if you ask any successful YouTuber or creator or any brand what their most successful marketing channel is, they'll probably name something that is owned. Their blog, their email, their community, their podcast, or maybe their text message list if they are a fitness instructor. So which of these own platforms should you actually invest in? It is up to you and what your strength is, all right? So you want to find the intersection between what you love doing and what your audience loves. What you really need to be doing is having identified your target market, right? And then clarify your message. The medium, the platform can vary. All you need to make sure is that your audience is able and capable of consuming that content. All right. So that's where you maximize and you can start creating. So if your audience likes hearing new things, you create a podcast. If your audience likes reading stuff, you create a blog, and then use rented platforms to then amplify what you've created from your own platforms. Okay. So I'm not saying, you don't have to have a blog or a newsletter or a community or a podcast and maybe a text message list like I mentioned for people in the fitness industry. You could, and maybe you eventually do that, but focus first on one or two that actually best align with what you can deliver and what your audience is craving. You see what I do with this podcast? I speak on the podcast every single day at 12 p.m. AEST. And from there, I then, get my team to create a blog out of this, to create social media posts out of this, and curate this information far and wide, and then create emails out of it as we go along. So if your industry, whether you're in health or wealth or relationships, is lacking maybe a quality blog, all right, then put out a blog that actually fills that void. And if you think you can create your audience next favorite podcast, then put out a podcast and so on, all right? And also do something that you can be consistent in, because you know what? Owned platforms are not sexy, bro. Do you know what I mean? They've been around forever. But that's also why they are here to stay. The longer something has been around, the more likely it is to keep sticking around. Whenever you're reading something and then there's a statement that says blogging is dead, email marketing is dead, podcasting is dead, SEO is dead, then you know there's merit in that particular channel. You know why? Because somebody's trying to distract you from what's already working into some sort of new and shiny object. Let me tell you something. Blogs are here to stay because people are, what do you call it? Visual learners, okay? They're going to want to read something in order to learn something, okay? Podcasts are always going to be there because people are auditorial learners and people can be visual, especially on videos and something like that. If something attracts, the sensory way of getting information in, that thing is there to stay. So people and companies will obviously continue to build out their website with valuable information and resources. Therefore, things like SEO, things like email marketing, things like anything and blogging, anything that has been there and stood the test of time, you want to invest in that because you own that, means of communication. All right. So email is actually fundamental identity and communication asset to everyone on the internet. Everyone has an email address. You have to check into, a platform using an email address, which means that email can be used as a communication platform. Communities are also maybe just getting started, but we are human at the core. So we've always been living around communities, right? So the sky is the limit, especially in that aspect, all right? The internet is predicated on communities, content, and communication. So if you can actually look at how you can be a part of all of that, you've literally won the internet, my friend, all right? So communities are, the ultimate owned platform. And if you haven't checked out our community, jump on to livelongbusinesscommunity.com.au. You'll hear about it at the end of this podcast if you listen right until the end. Okay. So communities are your ultimate owned platform, as you can determine how they're designed, who gets to be a part of it, and what information is shared, and how members actually communicate, all right? And you can actually carve out your own little corner of the internet without any algorithms that, maybe Facebook or LinkedIn wants to, impose on you. So communities are an ultimate medium for your members to connect with each other as well as a community, helping each other. If you understand anything about Ubuntu, you are because I am, or something of that nature. That's how we are wired as human beings, all right? And one other thing that you need to really start working on is a podcast, because podcasts are built on what's called RSS, right? It's one of the oldest and most fundamental technologies on the internet. While many details like download, subscribers, are left for those that are, truth seekers or whatever you call them these days, you still need a direct line of communication with your audience so that they can receive your content, all right? And nowadays, texting is actually becoming part of those legacy communication methods. It's usually reserved for friends and family to chat, but if you are maybe a health consultant, a wealth consultant, you can literally just connect with your people on text. And you can also use video. All right. The closer you are to the camera, the closer you are to the bank, because video is an emerging owned platform. Thanks to the emergence of Amazon servers that you can actually host your own content, and it actually allows you to turn your website into a video destination for your audience. You can embed all your videos directly on your site and encourage people to spend more time on your brand. It's like creating your own Netflix or things of that nature. Okay, I'm just going to touch upon Rented, which is, once you have already got these owned platforms, you now want to go where your audience is. Okay, so your audience is already just circulating around LinkedIn, Apple Store, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. You know what I mean? So you just want to go where the audience already is and introduce them to your owned media. Okay, you see, it's like when you rent a home, you have the right to live there and you can call it yours, but you can't make major exterior or interior changes without the consent of the landlord, all right? You have to live by the rules of that landlord, and everything, everything is subject to change depending on what's happening in that era. And maybe the next year rent could go up, and next month the owner would decide they want to sell that property and things of that nature. And so similarly, if you're on a rented platform, you can call it yours for that time being, but everything is subject to change. The algorithms, the monetization, the reach, the discovery, the profiles, the rented aspect of the platform is the actual end user experience. They also have to respond to their board members and shareholders, so they don't have your interest at heart. If you really look at it, there's a few trade-offs that happens when you're on somebody else rented platform. Remember, in 2002 and 2006, Facebook started crippling the reach of pages. Okay, when Facebook started, it had amazing organic reach until it didn't. So from 2012 to 2016, organic reach dropped from like 16 to 2%. That was heavy on a lot of people, and this could happen on any platform, not just Facebook or Meta. And one other thing is, you are at the mercy of algorithms, because all these platforms are changing and they're tweaking what gets shown in the news feed all the time. And when Facebook noticed that videos were huge, video content got favored in the algorithm more than text. And there are all sorts of signals and factors that determine what gets seen and shared, and they can change at a dime. And then there's also censorship, okay? We all know that you can't say anything that is, conflicting to the natural narrative of the day. I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah, look at, if something is not, the virtues of that day, guess what? It gets censored. And you actually have to pay to play on some platforms. If you want to reach the right people on whatever platform, you have to actually run an ad, and that will always be costing you at every click that you're going to be gunning, all right? And, things like Twitter and any posts, they carry far less weight than if somebody's actually reading something from a blog, because anybody can copy and paste a tweet, all right? But the upsides of it is you get discovered. You know what I mean? It's you get found by people that are randomly scrolling, and there's shareability. At the end of the day, your community might not necessarily share your content, but people on other platforms can. And, that's where people actually go and connect with the internet. So people spend an enormous time on social platforms. 4 billion people apparently use social media today, which accounts for roughly 51% of the global population. So on average, global internet users are spending between 1 to 5 hours on social media sites every single day. So you will be able to be found, And although there's too much emphasis that has been put on building a following on rented platforms, you want to actually create your own, sort of platforms, and then use that traffic from the rented platforms in order for you to create more of your audience. All right. Now let's just simply touch on borrowed. Borrowed is whatever media that's out there, which is maybe you are featured in mainstream media. It's not something that happens every single day. You know what I mean? You can be lucky as a coach and be invited to be on Oprah, but how many times in your career are you going to be able to do that? All right. So borrowing other people's audience is a key, maybe to kickstarting your growth on owned and rented platforms, but it's not something you can depend on, okay? So borrowing somebody's audience looks like maybe guest posting on a popular blog, YouTube's doing a collab with you, Instagram shoutouts, and even speaking at conferences. It's when you leverage other people's or another brand's owned platform to get exposure to their audience. So you're literally borrowing their audience. I mean, it's also overlooked as a strategy in general, just simply because it's not easy for you to get paid speaking gigs if you're not well known. So, it's like a chicken and egg scenario. Do you need to create your own platform first before you can be put on other people's platforms, or vice versa, you know what I mean? So, but then the magic of borrowing other people's audiences is that they've already done the hard work for you. All you're just doing is borrowing the trust that their audiences already has. They've already attracted the right kind of people, they've earned their trust, and they've kept their attention over time. Now all you got to do is just show up and provide something of value, and as long as you deliver on that, your audience is now destined to actually grow. Okay, so at the end of the day, you now have this, and I just want to put this all together because there's a lot to grasp here. Your marketing strategy comes down to measure these three components: owned platforms, rented platforms, and borrowed platforms. So owned platforms are supposed to be the priority, like I'm doing right now, showing up on the podcast to help you create for and relate to your audience. This is where you've got the direct relationship with your audience. Rented platforms offer you with discoverability and interaction, but come with platform risk. And borrowed platforms usually an underutilized strategy that you can use to actually grow your owned and rented platforms by creating win-win collaborations with others who have done the hard work of building an audience already. Okay, so the rest is in the details. If you use this ORB framework, it can actually help you figure out exactly where to invest your time, your money, and where to leverage the right platforms, and it helps you build a cohesive strategy that works. So if you want us to help you do this, we can work with you hands-on and develop a strategic plan, and then deep dive and work through your ideal client clarity, because if you know who exactly your client is, it's easier for you to then create this platform. And then we'll also help you with strategic messaging and look at your consulting offers, fees, pricing, your business model optimization to make sure that it is following through with all these platforms. And then pretty much once we've got that in place, we'll help you set up your marketing engine and lead generation system so you can constantly attract the right kind of clients, with the right kind of messages out there. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this new way of thinking about your marketing strategy. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au